video podcast group here from Section B, Dominique
Ryan.
Rory.
All right, and we did have Corey, but he dropped out. So, yeah, our editor's gone.
So this is purely unedited.
Yes,
Yeah.
purely unedited. I was the manager. Guys?
I was the artistic director.
And I was the script supervisor.
Yeah. Okay. And our topic was Tweek, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And our thesis statement was, most people who go to rehab for drug addictions have a much higher chance of relapsing.
Which is very, very true, and the entire article was about a guy named Nick who, I mean, he was kind of the golden kid when he was younger, but, just a few mishaps and he became addicted to drugs, and the entire article is about, his rampages just because of a few mistakes he made early in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he already had started drinking at a very young age, hung out, put himself in bad situations at a young age. Really it just starts out with who you surround yourself with, people you surround yourself with,
Yeah.
If influence is a big thing, and peer pressure, wanting to fit in, things like that, wanting to be accepted, so.
And all his starting at a young age was really bad because when you're in your teen years, that's when your body is most easily addicted to things. So he got hooked on just about everything he used at that point in time. And he went to rehab and got his life back and everything, but he started at a young age that it was ingrained into him. So rehab really didn't help him much, and he wanted to do it. So he got out of rehab and just did whatever he was doing before again.
Yeah, he was an addict and he did heroin once. And this guy's done everything from coke to ecstasy to shrooms, to crystal meth. And yeah, he was an addict and he did it once and just got hooked after that one time. So.
And he started out with just small things like weed, and then he started gradually moving up to them to other more addictive and dangerous drugs because he couldn't get the high that he did anymore.
And the real sad thing is I think we all know this is, he's not the only one out there. This is not an excluded problem. This is something that probably, 1 in every 15 teenagers probably struggle with these days. It's getting really bad. And I think we can all agree at this point in time that once you get hooked, that even once you're out of rehab, you have a much higher chance of relapsing by far than any kid on the street who hangs out with their own people.
All right, so Tweek, what happened in the story, guys? So we know that he drove to LA and he decided he just wanted some meth. So he met a guy on the street who obviously didn't care enough about him that he got him caught up in freaking heroin and became a drug dealer with him. And that includes everything from a good street hustle to not trusting anyone. And he runs into his ex-girlfriend Lauren. What happens there?
Well, they shoot each other up with crystal meth, and
that's pretty much their relationship. And she was also an addict, by the way. And while catching up from not seeing each other, she was saying that she was clean for 4 months.
Yeah.
And just by seeing him, and
that made her wanna do drugs.
yeah, it made her want to pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just kept buying more and more meth and eventually heroin, of course. And Gak was the guy, that was his name, right? The guy that they started dealing. They started dealing together, and they always had each other's back, someone to lean on while they were in the streets. And Gak he seemed very well knowledgeable and in the drug game, and he teaches Nick a thing or two about the street hustle and stuff. And it's just a crazy article.
Yeah.
I remember when I looked at it, just look at this. Where is that orange sheet? It was a thick article. When I looked at it, I was like, I don't even want to read it. But then when I started, I couldn't stop. I wanted to read till the end.
And, I mean, he also got so caught up in it that you look at his entire family, and it wore them to pieces. They just couldn't... this was their perfect little boy who is on drugs, and, several, more than once throughout it, he broke into their house to get stuff. And, and then the mind of a drug addict, nobody else really matters that much. And so, this is their son, which they don't understand anymore, and doesn't, he isn't who they always thought he was.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows a certain degree of selfishness, because he really didn't care that much, because he had younger siblings who always looked at him as a hero. And,
Yeah. And I mean, he eventually, as he's looking back at his life, he wants to get reacquainted with his old self, and his old childhood friend, JT, he wanted to help him out, get him started with, a new apartment, job, no drugs, drug-free, and then he offered him a place to stay, medicine so that he could detox and figure out his life and stuff. Offered him an apartment, good job, and he manages to stay off of drugs for a couple of months, but this time the relapse, it was just worse than ever.
Yeah, it was...
Yeah.
But I say, the moral from this story is pretty much that if you get hooked on drugs, if you use something once, make sure it is just once, because his being on drugs affected his old friend JT. It ruined his family's life.
I wouldn't even say to try it, honestly.
Yeah.
Just
avoid it at all
read
costs.
this story, read this article.
Yeah.
It doesn't just affect you; it affects everybody around you, and it affects your body. It affects, that one time of him doing heroin. After that one time, he wanted it.
Yeah.
He strived for it.
He would do anything for it.
Yeah, teens often say, "Oh, I'm just gonna try it," but like we said, that at the teen years, you are addicted so easily that he instantly was hooked. And if you read this article, it hurt everybody he touched. Everybody.
Yeah, and another thing was, since he was under 25 when he started doing drugs, his frontal lobe didn't develop all the way, because it stops developing when you're 25.
Little known fact.
Yeah.
I just think it's sad, but I mean, after reading the whole article and then reading that article 19 even, to see the parents' point of view, that was sad. And I mean, I think it's sad that he surrendered his body to drugs and temporary fixes, But it's really common nowadays.
Yeah, and so for parents, kids may not appreciate it, but make sure that you are in their face sometimes about what they're doing when they're hanging out with their friends.
Who they're hanging out with.
And what time they get home.
Their influences, What kinds of things are they into? What do they do? Definitely be on the lookout. Be aware of that. So.
Yeah, and for the kids themselves, like we said, watch out who you hang out with. Make absolutely sure that everybody you hang out with is a positive influence. That if your friends say, "Hey, want to smoke some weed?" That's supposedly a minor drug.
Yeah.
Say no and do the best you can to avoid those friends. Because sooner or later, because teens are extremely susceptible to peer pressure, you're gonna bend and you're gonna do it, and you might end up, "Oh, hey, this isn't so bad."
Yeah.
And then after that, you'll end up like Nick from the story, because he didn't start out with big things. He started out little too.
Or you could move to drinking, which is also very addictive.
Yeah.
And it really ruins people's life.
Yeah, it's basically poison.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And it ruins your liver, as well as killing many brain cells.
Yes. Oh yeah. So our intended audience was.
Well, I'd say high-risk individuals. Anybody who this could be a problem. People who live in parts of town which drugs are easily attainable, and maybe parents could use this as informational about what can happen if you don't keep good enough tabs on your children.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sorry.
Alrighty, so that was us, and yeah, hope you enjoyed everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Sorry Corey couldn't be here.
Yeah. Remember, our thesis statement was that most people who go to rehab for drug addiction have a much higher chance of relapsing. So just don't do drugs. Stay away.
Subscribe button.
Stay golden.